today, Jesse? All right, very good. All right, is everybody ready? Good morning, and thank you all for being here for our weekly press conference. This week we will be following essentially the same format as we do every other week, which is that we begin with an update on gun violence, what we are seeing, what some of the data indicate, and then we're going to move to some of the work that the DA's office does in some of its different divisions. Today we have a very exciting story about work being done by the Economic Crimes Unit involving the arrest and the prosecution of people who steal houses. Individuals who steal houses, notaries who steal houses and work in conspiracy with others who steal houses. For way too long, we have seen in the city a failure to apprehend, to thoroughly investigate, and to prosecute people who are stealing houses from our most vulnerable residents. Often it is from people who are elderly, or it is from people who whose family are dealing with their loss. We cannot tolerate this kind of bullying. I'm happy to say that this office has been far more active than prior offices in pursuing these cases, and that we are also blessed to have the support from legislators who are concerned about this issue. We have with us today Pennsylvania State Rep. Donna Bullock of the 195th Legislative District, who has expertise in this area and has just this morning even had very interesting input about what might be done, and hopefully we may be able to support that in some way. I want to begin by acknowledging the folks who are here with us. We have ADA Dawn Holtz, who is the chief of the Economic Crime Unit. We have ADA Kimberly Essick, the assistant chief of the Economic Crimes Unit. ADA Chesley Lightsey is here, as she is for most of these conferences, because she is the chief of the Homicide and Non-Fatal Shooting Unit, a unified unit in the office under this administration. We have with us Pennsylvania State Rep. Donna Bullock of the 195th Legislative District, Mel Wells, the CEO of One Day at a Time, Darnell Scott, supervisor of One Day at a Time, although he may not have arrived yet. We have the Reverend Dr. Clarence Wright, senior pastor of the Love Zion Baptist Church, which is hosting us today. And I want to give a special nod to Sergeant Anthony Jackson and Detective Thomas Robinson, both of the Major Crimes Unit, who were so involved in the investigation and ultimately the successful charging of 5 people involved in stealing 10 homes. Once we complete question and answer after this session, we will be taking a little walk onto the 2300 block of Harold Street, very nearby where one of these stolen houses is today. A stolen house that we hope is now protected from bullies who want to take advantage of marginalized people who own these houses. Let me shift quickly to the update from March the 14th of 21 to March the 20th of 21 on homicides. Year to date, we are at 109 homicides. This date last year, we were at 86 homicides. That is an increase of 26.74%. And there is no good news in that. But it is important to note the following, and we've noted it previously, that if we look at years before the pandemic, recent years before the pandemic, the rate of homicide was about 1 per day. During the pandemic, what we have seen is a rate of homicide that's about 1.5 per day. As of this morning, the rate is about 1.25. That is a very, very slight decrease, and is nothing to celebrate or cheer. But at least we know that at the moment, and we can only go moment by moment, that at the moment, the rate is coming down very slightly. Our message on gun violence remains the same. We did experience a violent weekend. We had a few double shootings impacting East Police Division and the Northwest Police Division. 6 people were shot, 1 fatal, at an event on Germantown Avenue in Nicetown, Tioga. Our community engagement team will be making outreach this afternoon in the Nicetown, Tioga community to provide support to communities and families impacted by this weekend's deadly shooting. We are also there for anyone who wants to give us information. Give it to the police if you are willing. Give it to us if you are willing. We are here to work with you. I cannot help but mention one more time that in this city right now, we do not have the full support for the Philadelphia Police Department's forensics unit that we need. As I've said many times, this is a relatively cutting-edge unit. The person in charge, Dr. Garvey, is brilliant in my mind. And there's certain kinds of forensics that he is either trying to repair, which we had for many, many years, but are broken right now, or there are other forensics he's been trying to get for a few years. And somehow, we are able to get this small amount of money that would be necessary to have this online to help with these investigations at a time when our police are doing the best they can. And yet in good times, they're only able to solve 2 out of 10 shootings. And during this pandemic, with all the obstacles they have, they're only able to solve 1 out of 10. We have to do better on forensics. It's just not that much money. And I look forward to any questions there might be later on that point. Obviously, this violence is completely unacceptable. It will not be tolerated. The facts are these for anyone considering being involved in gun violence. If you get caught, you're looking at getting convicted. Our conviction rate for shootings and for gun homicides is very close to 85%. This is among the very highest rates of conviction that have existed in the last 5 years. No, it's not good enough, because we always want to do better. I would love to see this office, which is not cheating the defense, which is trying these things in the right way. I'd love to see us get above an unprecedented 90% conviction rate in the city of Philadelphia, making sure we're not putting innocent people in jail, making sure the defense is getting all the information to which they are entitled. I would love to see that. But let me be clear. If you get arrested, your odds are not good. So any one of you who is involved in conflict, it's time to go a different direction. It is time to go a different direction for everyone else, and it's time to go a different direction for you, because there are consequences. Victims, families, and communities impacted by gun violence can contact our CARES unit for support at 215-686-8019. A reminder on that unit, this is a unit that was started actually by Movita Johnson-Harrell when she first came into our office with over $1 million in grant money. It has been so successful in providing important services for the families of people who have suffered a homicide that the granting has been reestablished for another 3 years. There has been a recent purchase of 4 automobiles that enable us during a pandemic to provide those incredibly important services. I am thrilled, frankly, to talk about to announce charges against 5 individuals who stole 10 houses. Speaking of consequences, this has been a blight on our city for quite some time, and it's not just that the houses get stolen, it's also often that the thieves then move people into those houses who may have no idea the house is stolen. They write leases as if they were the owners. They move in individuals who may be completely oblivious to the fact that they are in that home illegally. It's very upsetting, disconcerting to the neighbors for reasons you can imagine. And think of the position of a police officer who's being told by neighbors there's a stolen house. Go to the door, knock on the door. A nice couple comes to the door and shows them a lease. They have no recourse. And often people whose houses are stolen end up having to go into their own pockets, if they even have a pocket, to try to go through civil processes, some of which are closed right now, to try to get that house back. So I am thrilled to say that we have a major announcement of a bust having to do with stolen houses. At this time, I'm going to ask ADA Dawn Holtz and ADA Kim Essick to come forward and provide specifics on the charges against these individuals and their behavior. After that, I will be inviting in order Pennsylvania State Rep Donna Bullock and then Mel Wells to say a few words, and we will switch over to Q&A before we take our walk. ADA Holtz and ADA Essick, if you would come forward, please, although I think we're going to be cleaning the, we're going to be doing the socially conscious thing here. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, DA Krasner. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for letting us come to speak to you today. My name is Dawn Holtz, and I am the supervisor of the Economic Crime Unit. I'm going to give you a little tiny bit background about how I got to be here. I was born and raised in Philly. I grew up in the 24th Police District in the Port Richmond section of Philly. Went to Penn State University and Temple University School of Law. Actually started in the DA's office. My first experience, I was in college and did an internship, which eventually led to me getting a job as a paralegal once I graduated, and then I ended up going to law school at night. So I'm going to be celebrating my 37th year with the office this year. I'm being tasked today just to give you a little overview of some of the kinds of cases. Kim will talk about the big case that's happening right now, but just to give you a little overview of the kind of work that we do. Obviously, our first priority is to help the citizens in any way that we can. There's so many different kinds of financial crimes. Now, we can't maybe do all of them, but what we also do is we refer people out to the appropriate agencies if we're not the appropriate agency. So we do everything from unemployment compensation fraud, where a business may not be carrying unemployment insurance for their employees, insurance fraud, where, say, for example, you were in an accident, the person that hit you has a fake insurance card that's submitted. Now you're out of money, and there's no way for your car to be repaired. We do embezzlement from small business. A lot of times bookkeepers will steal for years so people don't know, a lot of these family businesses. Or even from nonprofits, we have a lot of complaints of people stealing from churches, from athletic, civic associations. We handle a lot of those matters. The deed theft is very, very hot right now, and Kim will talk to you a little bit about that. We do contractor cases to some extent. A lot of people hire contractors to do work, and they leave with the money or they don't finish it. There are some cases that we can do, and there's also some cases that we refer out to the Attorney General's office because they also have a civil side. For if a case isn't criminal, it might just be civil. We do forgery, bad check cases, consumer fraud. People call, they're lured into a bad investment, and they put their life savings in and find out that they've been duped. They're kind of hard to do, but we will look at those and see if we can help out in those areas. Credit card fraud, identity theft to some extent. We do public adjuster fraud. We had a big case several years ago. We have another one right now with over $800,000 that a business took from another business who had a big claim. And so what they do is they actually perform the work. They come out and solicit people. If your house is on fire, they're there before the fire department's there, throwing things under your door. And people have this idea that they're going to make more money by hiring a public adjuster. That's not always true, but in these cases, the people got no money because the public adjuster kept the checks, cashed them at check cashing agencies where they, that's a whole other story, and then never got their money. Then they can't repair their homes because they don't have the money, and they can't insure their homes because the home, there's a hole in the ceiling and water coming through, and no insurance company is going to, allow you to be insured for that. And we get referrals from all over. We have 2 complaint lines. We have one by phone, which is 215-686-9902. And we have also, if you want to go online, it's fraudcomplaint@phila.gov. We answer every call that comes through, and we get a lot. We get them from citizens. We get them from City Hall, from council members, from any sort of state rep, anybody where someone would come and need some help, one of their constituents. Other law enforcement agencies, if the jurisdiction, someone might call and think it should happen here, and when we look into it, it really should be tried somewhere else. So we also have a way to try to refer cases out to other agencies. Every complaint that comes in is logged into a database with certain particulars from the case, the names, addresses, businesses, so that if we ever get a call again, we can go check and see if there have been any other prior complaints. Either our paralegal, Ryan, will answer the calls, or one of our DAs, myself, I answer a lot of them myself. And like I said, if we can help you, we will try to help you. We are also now working with a consumer financial group from City Hall of all different agencies, the Senior Law Center, the Community Legal Services, and we have meetings on a monthly basis. And we're working on a bigger project right now to give some more information to the communities about where they can go or how to maybe stop something before they, take a phone call and give information out when, most of the agencies that are calling you are going to be mailing something to you. They're not going to be calling you. In fact, my mother-in-law, actually, she thinks she's a pretty savvy woman. She fell victim to it a couple weeks ago. So the other thing I wanted to say to the consumers and the citizens out there is the police department really is your first line of where you should go. It's always the best thing to make a police report. We are the economic crime unit, but we can't do every single case. And what happens is, if you can make a police report, if the detectives feel that it's something that it's over their amount or they're over their head, they'll contact us. And we do investigations, but we can't do every investigation. But our goal is to help everyone and get them to the place that they need to be. There's also a lot of cases, and it's sad, where we can't help people. Either the statute of limitations has run, or it's a civil matter. And a lot of the cases are civil matters. And we also try to maybe hook them up with community legal services if appropriate. Just want to really quickly highlight a few cases that we've recently had in the unit. We had a complaint actually from City Hall regarding a community group who had a couple parcels of land in South Philly. And they owned it jointly, the group. Well, the president of that group put all those parcels into his name. He went and got the deeds changed. And he was charging rent to other people to park their cars there. And that was something that actually came out, and it was successful, and the person was arrested. We have a gentleman who collected his dead wife, who was a police officer's benefits for 20 years after he remarried, which you're not allowed to do. He collected about $300,000. He was a prior city worker. I mentioned the public adjuster cases. We had the one that was actually in the news before, where we had 50 victims. That case is still awaiting trial. And so basically what I wanted to tell you is, there's a lot of other things that we do. Please reach out to us. We have a lot of partnerships now, and our partnerships are expanding, and we're here to help you. So don't feel free to call us. I think there's also my name and phone numbers on the website also. And like I said, we're here to help you. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kimberly Essick, and I'm an assistant supervisor of the Economic Crimes Unit. And I have been with the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office for just about 18 years. Overall, I've been a prosecutor for 20 years. I've worked in various divisions throughout the office, starting from municipal court through major trials, but I have been in the Economic Crimes Unit for a total of 10 years. As you heard from Chief Holtz, the Economic Crimes Unit handles a variety of cases, usually involving some form of theft. And one type of theft the citizens of Philadelphia have had to deal with a little bit more frequently, as of late, is that of deed theft or fraud, where a perpetrator will quite literally steal a house out from under someone, or their family, or their estate, or while they're alive, and just not living in that home at the moment. It maybe is a property that they own, and thereby causes the victims and their families to then suffer through not only the financial loss of that property, but also the legal burden of trying to get that property back. Today, we're here to highlight the culmination of a collaborative investigation between the District Attorney's Office and the Philadelphia Police Department's Major Crimes Unit. We have some representatives here today from that unit. In May of 2019, we received a complaint from an attorney on behalf of his client that his client's property had been illegally transferred without his permission, and this person was alive and well when this had happened. A review of the transfer by investigators from the District Attorney's Office Economic Crimes Unit revealed that the property had been transferred into the name of R&DHB Islamic Community Incorporated, which you will come to see is actually the initials of two of the people who were arrested for this, with the alleged perpetrator, Richard Harris Bay, signing for the transfer, and his wife, Demisha Harris Bay, notarizing the same. She was actually a notary in this situation. A lot of our cases, the notaries have had their identities stolen, their stamps stolen, and their signatures forged, but that's not what went on here. In this particular case, the notary herself was actively involved per the evidence that we uncovered in the conspiracy to steal houses or to help others steal houses in the city of Philadelphia. The investigation then uncovered this conspiracy, which involved, in this situation, 5 perpetrators. So while working together with Detective Robinson of the Philadelphia Major Crimes Unit, as well as our own in-house investigators, DA detectives Matthew Raudenbush and Patricia Wong, we uncovered a total of 11 properties that have been stolen by the perpetrators after forging the deeds into either their names or another person's names from both living and deceased property owners, with the common thread between them being the connection to the notary, Demisha Harris Bay, who was notarizing the deeds for everyone. All 5 co-conspirators, including Richard and Demisha Harris Bay, Robert Foster, Damon Urquhart, and Lance Felder, have been arrested and are currently awaiting preliminary hearing on multiple counts of theft, forgery, conspiracy, and related charges. Historically, investigating forged deed cases has been difficult due to a lack of access to information as well as witnesses to the crimes as they're occurring, and an inability to make critical connections across the city with the players that are involved in these schemes. The District Attorney's Office has been committed to changing the standards of investigating deed theft and shining a light onto the problems faced by investigators. We are proud to report that working closely with the recorder, first with the Philadelphia Police Department, as well as other city stakeholders, such as the Recorder of Deeds Office, they have been absolutely instrumental in helping to move forward our deed fraud investigations. One of the biggest hurdles we faced in the past is a lack of communication among the organizations, as well as from members of the community who are dealing with these crimes. In order to change that dynamic, we have all welcomed a more collaborative approach to solving these crimes, because knowledge is power, and the more we talk to one another and learn from each other, we are not only able to find out about the crimes after they have occurred, but now we are making significant improvements based on what we learned from those crimes and helping the community learn how to protect themselves from fraud before it even happens. Working with Commissioner Jim Leonard of the Recorder of Deeds has been invaluable to helping to identify cracks in the system, as well as brainstorming ways to treat the problem at the source, which has been critical to our investigations. His office, as well as the Philadelphia Police Department, has done a phenomenal job in working together with us as a team with information sharing. Victims or those who suspect crime don't always call the police first, and instead often come right to our office to report fraudulent activity in the community, which we do want because we are tracking all that information and collecting our own database, as Chief Holtz had mentioned. And sometimes when they do report to the police department, the Economic Crimes Unit doesn't learn about the case specifically, and therefore we can't make all the necessary connections between all the people who are involved in these crimes. Because as you can see from this case, there are common players among the stolen houses. But if not for speaking with the Philadelphia Police Department, we may not have known that there was a common player. and because of some changes that have been made at the Recorder of Deeds office to make it easier for us to find this information. But that is no longer the case, as we happily work together with the Philadelphia Police Department, in particular the Major Crimes Unit today, as noted already, represented by Sergeant Anthony Jackson and Detective Thomas Robinson, in order to regularly share information to build the strongest possible cases against the perpetrators of these frauds. There has also been a collaborative effort with all of our counterparts to better educate the community about ways to protect themselves, while also encouraging them to reach out to law enforcement when they believe that a crime is occurring. We do not work on an island unto ourselves, for it is only by working together that we will be able to advance our common interests, which is fighting crime and protecting the community from being further victimized. We encourage all citizens to reach out, to call the police, to make a report, and then to also call our office, to call the district attorney's office, to let us know what it is that you're seeing out there. Because the more information that we have, we can take that and utilize that towards more investigations in the future. We are all here to help, and we are happy to do the heavy lifting, but the only way we can truly succeed in fighting fraud in community neighborhoods is by working together with the community. So remember the old saying, if you see something, say something, because we are here and we are listening. So if you're in the community and you're a neighbor, and neighborhoods know who their neighbors are, especially in these close-knit communities, they know who have been living in these homes, they know when someone's died, and they know that there were grandchildren, and they know that there's a whole new group of people who came in here and nobody has sold this property because no one's around. Call us. Let us know so that we can get on it. Thank you.
Thank you, DA Krasner, attorneys Kim and Dawn. I apologize, I forgot your last names. And thank you to Reverend Wright for allowing us to be in your house today. I'm State Representative Donna Bullock. I represent the 195th Legislative District. I also serve as the chair of the Pennsylvania Legislative Black Caucus in Harrisburg. We share a great relationship with the DA's office as we work on issues to ensure the public safety. We've talked and worked on issues around criminal justice reform, gun violence, police reform, and more. But today, we are talking about consumer protections. We are talking about keeping one safe in their home or protecting one's legacy in their home. When someone steals a home or commits deed fraud, they're stealing much more than a property. They are stealing, and they are taking away from that family's legacy, that family's memories. They are stealing wealth from that community and from that family in particular. And when these actions happen in our communities, when we see homes being stolen through this process, it is part of a bigger issue. Sometimes those homes then become a nuisance to that community. Many, many times, stolen homes fuel gentrification in low income and communities of color. This is important to note because when a home is stolen from a family, it has so many other consequences. I look forward to working with the DA's office to look at state legislation that we can introduce to tighten some of the issues we've seen around here, the loopholes around deed transfers, to look at the notary public rules and guidelines and figure out where we can have some penalties for those who abuse or misuse their notary public, their notary seals. Also to look at how we can give the city some room and some authority to have stricter requirements for filing deeds, and so that we can manage this problem in the city of Philadelphia. But I hope it also leads to conversations across the Commonwealth, because this issue is happening in other parts of the Commonwealth. And so I look forward to working with the DA and his team so that we can protect our homeowners, we can protect the families and their legacies and their wealth, and we can protect our communities from these fraudulent transfers. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. First of all, I want to just thank everybody for being here, being in my community. I can't really speak without speaking about the young people that die in our community, right? And a lot of times, a lot of people come in, they ask about putting your guns down. And a lot of people on the street going to say, well, what you going to give me something to step up to? So one day at a time, along with City Council, along with my partners behind me, we were to come up with a program, a $4 million program that supports same-day pay. Same-day pay. You could come out, get a job, work over 4 times, getting up to $400. And then what we also do is make sure the person gets a part-time or a full-time job. How do I know this work? How do I know that this works? I'm an ex-offender myself. Our street team members, we have 15 street team members, over 15 ex-offenders who are out there saving and helping the community. I have to speak about gun violence in my community. If you look at just a 15-year-old who was shot coming outside of the 7-Eleven, we actually helped the family of the 9-year-old young lady who was shot, I think a 5-year-old young lady who was shot in the face. And it's a nightmare that's going on in our community. So a lot of people, we had these press conferences and so forth, and a lot of people say, okay, it's just another meeting. This is not just another meeting. Help is here. You know, don't play the blame game. I'm speaking to my city. I'm speaking to the city of Philadelphia. I'm speaking to the community that please put the guns down. But now we're taking away the excuses. We have things for you to step up to. If you see all the partners behind me, you see the DA right here. They have resources, you know. So you have to be wanting to be able to get the help in order to level up your life and level up for your loved ones so you can live to see another day. We live in one of the highest rates of poverty in this part of the city. We have some of the highest rates of gun violence, HIV and AIDS. And so what we need to do in our community is actually step up, get rid of the excuses along with our partners, and we actually have to have programs, one day at a time as a program, that help over 56,000 individuals a year that's located in London, India, and Cambodia. We're right here. We don't need money or anything. If somebody needs help getting off of drugs, all you got to do is show up. Be willing to pick up a broom to be able to clean up some of the things that you dirtied up. So I just wanted to come up here and put a plea to my community. I'm not embarrassed about it or whatever. Please put the guns down. We're killing our babies in our community. We're filling up the jail cells, and we're taking away our moms and our dads and our kids' dreams, even for us. And not only that, when you point a gun, look at how many fingers pointing back at you. That's how many bullets shoots away your dream and your family members. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Clarence Wright, pastor here at the Love Zion Baptist Church. Welcome back. I know you've been here before. Typically, we're talking about gun violence, and as Brother Wells just addressed, it's still a major concern that we need to keep on the radar. But I'm glad that we're addressing some of the economic crimes today. We are committed to economic justice at this church and in this community. We're committed to economic empowerment. We just launched a community development corporation called the Center for Economic Empowerment a little over a year ago that is addressing some of these financial concerns, financial education in the community. But I want to make it clear, these economic crimes are in direct contrast to the economic empowerment that we need in this community. If we're going to address the violence and many of the other things that affect this community and many other communities like this, we need to address the economic issues. And if we have people stealing wealth-building engines from under people in our community, that is directly impacting the crime, the poverty, and everything else that is working to tear down the fabric of this that has historically been a strong community. So we want to do everything we can to stop that, and that includes the work of this office. So thank you all for being here today.
Thank you to all of our wonderful speakers. Rep Bullock, I want you to know we have a mean machine in our office by the name of Sean Baldwin. Mr. Baldwin is a lawyer. He works in our law division. He previously served as the legislative aide for another elected official, and he and we are all about doing anything we can to give you the support. I know you do a lot, but if we can give you some support in terms of some of the wonderful ideas you have at a regulatory level or a legislative level, statewide, we would love to do that. Mel Wells. Who that?
Who that?
All right. So I knew you. I knew your father. I know you. I have to, you two have been two of Philly's great assets in trying to deal with people suffering from addiction in so many correlated issues. We really appreciate you. We appreciate your eloquence on that topic. And Reverend Dr. Wright, once again, you brought down the house because you gave us a big picture that maybe even I was missing. So thank you very much for that. We are now available to answer any questions, and by we, I mean we. All of us are available to answer any questions that you may have. And then after that, we'll be taking a walk nearby and actually going by one of the houses that was stolen.
What's the current status of those properties?
Kim?
They are in the process of being transferred back, but if that is not something our office is involved in, unfortunately, they have to go through the quiet title process. So if there's anything in each individual property situation where we will be able to assist in getting a transfer back to the owner without having to do that, we're going to try. But as it stands right now, it has to go through civil process. No, filing quiet title with civil court. The civil court, come please.
How big of a problem is this in the city? Because obviously we've heard stories like this over the past year, but it just seems like maybe it's becoming a bigger issue.
I don't have exact numbers, but it does appear to be becoming much more prevalent because it is such a quick payout in some of these situations. We're investigating a few right now, which I can't go into the details of, where the person uses the identity of another, actual identification, and ends up walking away with a $60,000 check and is in the wind. If it's that easy, and then the property gets flipped to an unsuspecting buyer, and they're paying $300,000 for the property, which has been referenced earlier about the fact that it's taking away from the community because now the property is worth $300,000. The rest of the properties around it is no longer worth it, and they can't even compete with that, and people will get pushed out of the neighborhood. And that is something that has to be considered with the economic impact of this. We do want the city to be built up, but it should be built up within the communities in a legal and valid way from the people who should get the rights to that property and to those monies. Instead, you have those who walk in, swoop, take the money and run. So I do not have actual numbers for it. I can only say that the complaints just keep coming in, and there are more and more properties.
How many of these properties were inhabited?
That were actually, someone was actually living in them at the time. I don't believe any of them. A few of them were properties that someone owned and they would go and check, and that's what happens a lot of times. They leave their property out there, and unbeknownst to them, someone has come by and does a quick deed transfer in their name. Yes, Commissioner Leonard was going to come and speak today, but he was unable to due to an emergency. So they, at City Hall, they have put together what is called fraud guard, that people in Philadelphia can register their properties. If they have a property that they want to keep tabs on, they can register it, and instead of the month later you get a letter in the mail that someone has filed a mortgage on your property or your deed has been transferred, you're getting almost immediate notice that something is happening, or much quicker notice. So there are now things in place. As for the system itself, there are many cracks in the system. We have been talking about them for months. A very long time. Unfortunately, the pandemic put a halt to a lot of those discussions. There are things that do need to be changed within the system, and we're hopeful that that's going to happen with help from our counterparts in the criminal justice system and from state representatives who can push that along.
I really can't talk about ongoing investigations, but did your office bring any similar charges over the past year?
We have many investigations going on for the same thing, and we have arrest warrants out there right now for another multiple case property, but until that person's arrested, I'm not going to speak on that one. The first is, I don't believe this is the first arrest since everything opened up again. I think we had maybe one or two that were in the investigation stage, but literally arrests were put on hold for situations like this for a while. But as soon as it opened up, the arrests did start coming. For properties of this nature, of this amount, it is the first larger one that we can speak about. There is another one that has more properties than this, but I'm going to wait until that person's actually arrested.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right, are there any other questions? Just a detail that you may find interesting, and seriously, many thanks to Commissioner Leonard, who has, along with, for example, Councilmember Sherelle Parker, kind of led the charge on improving things in Philly. Something to understand is that the old process used to be you really don't have to show any identification at all. At least some people didn't. When you come in with a forged deed and you provide it, and people who receive it have no obvious way of knowing that it's forged. And then what would occur was the only protective measure in place was a letter would be sent to the property about 30 days later. Well, there's nobody in the property most of the time, and it's 30 days later. So this is obviously of little use, if any. So coming up with something like Fraud Guard in the city, so at least really attentive owners or owners who are worried that they have an empty property or they have a property where they can't keep an eye out, having something like Fraud Guard in place means you can have immediate notification and you can have access to services to try to deal with it quickly before the property is flipped. And whoever flipped it, I mean, we've had instances where the people who are flipping these houses are actually in another country by the time we're able to detect them. Let me also say this. It is unfair, it is sad that owners whose properties have been stolen have to file in civil court to try to get their houses back through this process that I think was referred to as quiet title. We would really appreciate it if there were some law firms in Philadelphia who are doing okay, who might step up and give us a call and be on a list to be willing to do a little bit of pro bono work. It's not the most complicated work. It doesn't take forever, but it's the kind of work that victims can't afford too much of the time, and it is just not fair because the right to a public defender, if you are poor, does not extend to any kind of civil matter you might need to pursue as a victim. If we could do it, we would. We can't, but we would be delighted to have the names of 3 or 4 or 5 or 50 law firms that would be willing on an individual basis to step up and do this kind of work for people who are victimized in this fashion. Are there any other questions before we take a walk over towards one of the stolen houses? All right. Thank you very much.